I've seen a lot of comments on videos in the past couple months or on Twitter, some of which I can agree with, but they're all sort of looking at phones coming out these days and saying they're mostly pretty similar. They're all big screens on rectangular bodies with big batteries and big cameras, and there's only so much you can do with a rectangle. I also kind of said it, but maybe a little bit differently, but in a previous video I said, like, we don't even really measure smartphones by how good they are anymore or what's so good about them. We measure them by what's wrong with them and how many flaws they have, and if there's enough flaws to make a phone like a deal breaker. Yep, see this? This is a classic. The DROID came out in 2009, and that was the same year that we had the iPhone 3GS. So this phone was aimed directly at that iPhone. And all the shots fired in that commercial, all the rips in that ad were shot at the iPhone 3GS. And you don't even really see an entire commercial for a phone dedicated to comparing yourself to another phone. Like, that doesn't even really happen anymore. But I'm so glad we got it, because that sort of a diss track from Motorola was pretty good to highlight a lot of the differences in style. Okay, yeah, so the iPhone had a software keyboard, and the DROID had a physical keyboard that it was pretty proud of. The iPhone was slightly infamous at this time for not doing multitasking well, and the Android phones didn't even really do it that much better, but you did have sort of a little carousel for your most recently used apps, and you could sort of switch between them within RAM before they closed, so in that way it was a little better, and you could have that as part of your ad. The iPhone 3GS had a 3 megapixel camera on the back. The DROID has a 5 megapixel camera. And if there was ever a time that you could convince someone that higher megapixels in a camera automatically makes it better, it's 2009. This was a big one. Remember when you couldn't change your wallpaper on your iPhone? This was around that time, so you can kind of see where they're coming from. And this is still an argument used today. People will continue to say that Android phones have way more customization to the way they look and the way they operate than on Android. And this was super true when it was just iOS 3. This is another Android thing. iPhones still don't run widgets. Boy, has that changed. The Play Store was a big deal for Android at this time, and also the App Store was not nearly as much of a monstrosity as it is for iOS today. So I guess in that category, the iPhone wins the Most Improved award. So the iPhone 3GS didn't have a flash on the back. Fun fact, bet you didn't remember that. Also, the DROID does. So again, this phone had a removable back, which would allow you to add microSD storage and swap out the battery, which is, again, two things that the iPhone has not done since and probably will never do, so that's something that's also been different in style. So I think what made the DROID stand out was it was just a much bigger phone, so bigger display, had this keyboard, and then the software, this Android experience being very different from iOS 3. Also, this isn't just any DROID, this is my DROID. This is the first thing I ever reviewed. This is, should I link it? Sure, I'll link it. I'll embarrass myself. This is the first review I ever made was of this phone, and I used it every day for like 2+ years, and that's a long time for me, and I'm not gonna lie and say I could still use this phone today, but there are a lot of things that still stand out about it that are good, that are quality things that you look for in phones right now. So it was just kind of fun to look back at a device that made a big difference in the way phones are talked about and the way phones are viewed today. I kind of want to look at some other classic phones. Like, I would say this is a classic. I would say the first iPhone is a classic. I would say the T-Mobile G1 I would like to look at as a classic, and maybe some others around this time too. But my question to you is, and this is kind of an interesting one, what do you think is the oldest phone that you could still use today? Like, I know we're mostly using phones from like the last 3 or 4 years. I'm using phones from this year. You might be using a phone you bought last year or 2015 or 14. But I think I could use this, which is the Galaxy Nexus back from when it first came out in the Verizon days, I think I could use this pretty confidently as my daily phone right now, I think. Let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace. They just don't make them like that anymore.